We have great guests. We always do. But I love it when my favorites stop in to talk to us about the most important things. Mark Mix is back, president of the National Right to Work Legal Defense Foundation, president of the National Right to Work Committee, and all-around great guy, Mark Mix. Welcome back.
Stacy, it's good to hear your voice and good to be back with you. A lot has transpired since the last time we talked, but it's good. We're still alive and we're still doing well, and we get a chance to talk again. So thank you.
You know, I feel the same, much the same. Lots has transpired, but we are still alive and kicking. We're still in the fight. And good news is always welcome. You're joining us to talk about, this is an interesting story about a flight attendant. Tell us the details.
Yeah, Stacy, amazingly enough, this is a 9-year litigation on behalf of a Southwest Airlines flight attendant by the name of Charlene Carter. Charlene was a flight attendant for Southwest for 17 years. She had an unblemished employment record, literally nothing in her record that would indicate that she had any problems at all at work. But what she did have a problem with is the union that represented her at Southwest Airlines, the Transportation Workers Union that represents Southwest flight attendants. And this union is extremely radical. Their positions on causes that you and I would disagree with, and certainly Charlene disagreed with, was something that was really a bother to Charlene. And it happened back in 2017 after Donald Trump was elected. The Transportation Workers Union local that represents her decided to spend a whole bunch of money sending people to Washington, D.C. to march in that women's march, if you remember the pink hats and all that stuff that they had back then. And Charlene sent a private message to this union official saying that she disagreed with the ideological positions of the union and that her money was being spent on things that she didn't believe in. And Charlene and her had an engagement back and forth on some social issues that were very important to Charlene. And then on the right to work issue, she said, "This is why I support right to work." And ultimately, the union official went to Southwest Airlines HR department and said, "This lady's harassing me." It was all private, nothing public, nothing out anywhere that anyone would have known about. And within a week, Southwest fired Charlene. And so Charlene actually had seen something about the National Right to Work organizations on some television show somewhere, and she gave us a call, and we started litigating the case. It ended up in a jury trial at the district court in Dallas, Texas, and a jury awarded Charlene $5 million for the injustice that was perpetrated on her by the union and by Southwest Airlines, and failure to give her an accommodation for her ideological beliefs and just other things about treating. And during the process of all this, Stacy, during discovery, we found out that they were like the company and the union were kind of laughing at Charlene, saying, you know, she has no idea who she's been sorting in the past. If she knew who we were using her money to support, her head would explode. One guy said she was like a cancer in the workplace and had to be eliminated. And so when the jury got the case, they said $5 million. Obviously, Southwest and the unions both appealed. 2 weeks ago, we finally finished the case on Charlene's part. We still have some litigation that's going on with the foundation, but Charlene got paid about $1 million, and she got the maximum punitive and maximum compensatory damages she could get. And she got a check from the union, from the airline, from the union. And the interesting part about it, Stacy, she's still flying, but guess what? In order to fly for Southwest Airlines, she still has to pay union dues to that very union to keep her job. So there's more work to be done, but it is a good news story, and I think it's a lesson learned, and it's really something the union ought to pay attention to when they do these radical ideological things that have nothing to do with the workplace, have nothing to do with representing her and her position and her colleagues at Southwest Airlines, other than just a political agenda that is very much opposed to, I think, more employees than just Charlene. But it's a good story, and it's kind of the story of the Right to Work Foundation, how we take the courage of one individual and we expose the injustice of forced unionism. And I think this case is a real good model of that.
I love that they were literally mocking her behind her back. Look at where her money is going. And now they've had to pay her $1 million.
Yeah, Stacy, it's unfortunate. I mean, Charlene's been really great about it. She loves her job. She loved her job. She was heartbroken when she got fired. And, you know, one of the things that was really important about it, and as part of the litigation, we had, not only did we want to get Charlene her job back and get her compensated for this injustice, but we also had, part of the case was giving other airline employees the right to private action to do the similar thing. Unfortunately, the appellate court struck that down. So there's still some work to be done, as I mentioned. We've got some things we're going to be doing, I think, to try to get that back so that employees that are positioned like Charlene can actually fight the union and kind of hold the union accountable for the political and ideological stances they take that literally, Stacy, have nothing to do with the workplace. They can take their money as a condition of employment. You have to pay them. And they take that money and they play politics with it and other ideological causes and other things that have nothing to do with the workplace. And that's just wrong. And ultimately, we'll solve the problem. We'll get a right to work law for everybody that's in the airline business and the railway business and the private sector. We already got one for all the public sector workers. That Supreme Court case you and I have talked about in the past called Janus v. AFSCME. But there's always work to be done. And it's really upsetting that, unfortunately, to this day, workers can be forced to pay a private organization in order to get or keep a job in America. It doesn't make any sense.
It is a little ironic that after they've admitted to abusing her union dues and after they've had basically a open contempt for her, they then get to accept dues from her again, even though they've proven that they're not clean dealers, they're not clean operators.
Yeah. That's how the Railway Labor Act that governs airline employees and railroad employees across the country since 1926, by the way, that's how it reads. And she was working in Texas, which is a right to work state. If she'd have been just a private sector worker, she'd have been protected from that forced compulsion and that forced payment of dues. But because she's under the Railway Labor Act, the right to work law does not apply to those workers. And so she was forced to pay. She's still forced to pay today. To work for an airline that she loves and a job that she loves. And the only way she can continue doing it is to continue to pay this organization. Yeah.
So I am glad that she has prevailed on the merits and that someone as conscientious as herself, she went about it in the way that they always say, did you go to the interested party? Did you go to your supervisor? Did you talk? Did you go up the chain of command? You're always told, if only you had followed the procedures, none of these things would have happened. She was like, okay, who do I go to first? Okay, I'm going to go to that person and I'm going to talk to him about it and we'll just get this rectified. She really tried it the proper way.
Yeah, Stacy, and that's a great point you make because when Southwest Airlines fired her for this so-called infraction or this so-called problem, the only person that she could go to grieve that firing was guess who? The union official. So she literally had to go to the union that had Southwest fire her in order to exercise any rights in the workplace because the union is the monopoly bargaining agent in that workplace, and you can only talk to the employer through the union. And the grievance process that would adjudicate a dispute like this, the union controls that. But yet it was the union that got her fired. It just gets crazy. And you make that point very well that, it'd be nice if she had an advocate, but she did do it the right way. She didn't make it a public battle with the union. She made it a very private battle. And oh, by the way, she said she would support this union official's recall, and get a new leader in that union because of these things. And that made the union leader very mad too, or the union official, union boss, frankly. And so she's fighting the very organization that the law says she has to go to adjudicate a grievance in the workplace. And this grievance is, hey, you're fired because of this behavior. And the union would be the one that was supposed to protect her from the employer in that regard. But the way the law's written, it's unfortunate. And the good news, Stacy, is there's people like Charlene that had the courage to stand up and fight, do it right. We're glad that we could help them in a case like this. I mean, again, it's been a 9-year legal battle. They tried to go en banc. We're not sure yet whether the union's going to, or the union or the company's going to appeal the other issues in the case to the U.S. Supreme Court. They'll continue it, but at the end of the day, it shows what can happen when one person has the courage to stand up and fight. And we're glad to partner with her and glad to support what is now, believe it or not, Stacy, 298 active cases across the country as you and I talk this evening on behalf of workers that have the courage to stand up and fight back against this compulsion and this force in the workplace.
Wow, 298 cases. Yeah. But the unions have big money. They have big money if they're able to fight all those cases. Wow.
Yeah. There was a Bible story called David versus Goliath. You remember that one? Sometimes it feels like that, but I'll tell you what. Yeah, we punch above our weight, I think, here, and our attorneys are just committed to helping people exercise their rights, what limited rights they have. But there's more work to be done here. But the good news is that cases like this get national notoriety. You help get the word out on these things, Stacy, and so more people that listen, if they have questions about their rights in the workplace as it relates to unions and how unions are treating them or how unions are spending their money, they can get free legal aid and get their questions answered by the Right to Work Foundation. And we're grateful for the supporters of our organization that allow us to do that.
So, the unions have compulsory dues in many of the states, and that's how they're able to keep their war chest full. National Right to Work Foundation is supported by small donations from regular people who believe in the truth. And so we just bring that up because, Mark Mix is staying up late with us and hanging out with us at night, but he works all day on these cases and on helping Americans who are truly being oppressed by their own employer and a union that they often didn't get a choice in whether or not they would fund. So think about the support that they're providing to these fantastic people like Charlene. And you can go to one of their two beautiful websites. I would go to nrtw.org, nrtw.org. You can also go to nrtwc.org. Either of those, if you're driving, never fear. Just click the link in the show notes from tonight's program, and you can get there later on when you get home. Mark, thank you for coming on.
Stacy, good to hear your voice, and I will remind you once again, even though it's been a while, get some rest, okay?
Yes, you know what? I'm overdue for you to say get some rest. Although I have to say, one of my rest points has been that this year, because last year I was so busy working, I had so much going on, my garden didn't even get started until June. I have already been out there, and things are blooming. I've had like four peony bouquets so far, and all of the rose bushes are flowering up, and it's really been great. So as a part of rest, it's getting your hand into the dirt, getting the mulch laid out, and putting in some annuals. So I've been doing that, and it's been really great. So I appreciate the encouragement to rest. I've been trying. Yeah.
Stacy, always a privilege to talk with you, okay?
All right. Have a great night, Mark. And we'll be back with